Welcome to Kent District Library's streaming programs. I'm Laura from the Nelson Township, Spencer Township, and Crouse Memorial branches. Thanks for tuning in today for today's COVID trauma and self-care program, which will begin shortly. I also want to encourage you all to take part in Summer Wonder 2021. It goes until August 7th, which is this Saturday. If you have been reading or attending some of our virtual programs, you can get free stuff. For more information, you can go to kdl.org/summer. KDL is also archiving many of these programs, so you can find more programs for all ages on the KDL Facebook page and the KDL YouTube page. Thanks again for tuning in. Let me introduce our presenter, Cheryl Blackington from the Grand Rapids Center for Mindfulness.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for that introduction. I am Cheryl, and I will be doing this presentation with you. The title of this is Mindful Self-Compassion During Challenging Times. And I know we're in a little bit of a respite, perhaps many of us, from our past 1.5 years of COVID, but certainly it has an impact on all of us. I have been talking about self-compassion primarily for this entire time period, and I think you'll find that it's very helpful. So just a little bit about me. I am a retired teacher, and about, I think 8 or 9 years ago now, I found mindfulness and then mindful self-compassion because I was so anxious and so stressed. And I took the class from Grand Rapids Center for Mindfulness, the mindfulness class, 8-week class, and it changed my life to the point that I decided that I needed to go and become certified and teach it. I could see at that point the warning signs and the behavior and the stress of my students and the teachers I worked with. And so it brings me a lot of joy to be able to share some of the things that I have learned throughout my journeys here. So let's begin. I should also say that this will be a little bit of me talking. It will be some experiential because you have to do this in order to really experience it. So let's begin. So here's what we're going to do today. It's an hour, so it will be a little snippet or a little introduction of mostly mindful self-compassion, but we will review mindfulness. The past few times I have talked here about mindfulness, so you'll get a little bit of that and then mostly mindful self-compassion. We'll talk about the benefits of it. We'll do a brief snippet of research during COVID-19 and how mindful self-compassion is helpful. We'll do some somatic practices, which is what mindfulness is all about, and that simply means body-based practices. So in order for us to really be able to experience our present moment, which is the goal of mindfulness, we get into our bodies, which I know sounds a little strange because we all have them, but mostly we spend our time in our heads. And that's what gets us in trouble. So we're going to experience what that's like. And that will happen in the form of some guided practices. There will be a little bit of time at the end. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to do that. So I always begin with some grounding. And what I mean by that, it's a chance for us to sit still, to find some calm and some peace. And you see that there's a little boat with an anchor there. So notice the anchor for the boat keeps that boat from floating away. It keeps it steady in storms. It keeps it from being drawn down the current. It gives a place for the boat to sit despite what's going on all around it. And that's very much like our bodies. No matter what's happening in our lives, no matter how chaotic, how stressful, whatever's going on, we can always find solace with our anchor, which we teach in mindfulness can be our breath, or it can be a number of other things. I should say, as I begin this, that we all have different backgrounds. We certainly all have experienced trauma throughout this entire COVID period, but some of us have some long-term trauma ongoing. And so we all experience a comfort level in a different way. So I'll give some options as we go through this Some of them might be rather than closing eyes, we keep our eyes open. Some of it might be we find a different anchor than our breath, which could be our feet, could be something we see. We could keep our eyes open and see something or listen to it. And so those are some brief instructions. And if you were to take an 8-week mindfulness class, you would get a full amount of the kinds of choices you might have. But please always keep yourself safe and do what's comfortable for you as we go through this. This practice will be about 5 minutes long. And before we begin, here's what I mean by a practice. Typically, when we practice, we sit in the same position, such as in a chair with our feet on the ground, with our hands in our lap, and our eyes closed. That's the tradition. However, as I mentioned, if that's not comfortable for you, you can lie down on the floor. You could stand up. You could keep your eyes open or partially open. Whatever feels right for you. You can just try it on as we go through this. So, that being said, this will be about 5 minutes, and I invite you to sit up straight or lie on the floor with hands by your side, hands in your lap, feet on the floor, and eyes closed if you wish to do that. And we'll begin with a deep breath in, filling your belly, expanding as the air enters, allowing it to expand into your chest and lungs, pausing at the top, and then when you're ready, letting it go. Once again, a deep belly breath in, filling, expanding, bringing in that fresh oxygen. And when you're ready, letting it go. And each time you breathe out, you might loosen up a little, allow your shoulders to relax, your face to relax. One more deep breath in. And then let it go. And notice by let it go, you can really let things go. Settling into our body. Now bring your breath to just a normal breathing pattern. No need to do anything differently. Your body knows how to breathe all by itself. So just allowing the breath to come in and out. And you can just observe it as if there's a mini me sitting on your shoulder, just watching, just noticing with curiosity and kindness. So breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, settling in, finding the anchor of your breath if that feels comfortable. Noticing what's happening with the physical sensations of your in-breath and of your out-breath. Noticing even the temperature of the air as you breathe in and you breathe out. Breathing in and breathing out. You can even say that to yourself if you wish. In and out. And each time your thoughts get distracted and you find yourself going down that rabbit hole of thinking, congratulate yourself for noticing and simply let it go and bring your attention to your breath. Now you also have the option of making your anchor be your feet rather than your breath, if that feels comfortable. So focusing on your feet as they rest on the floor, perhaps in your shoes or barefoot or sandals, and noticing the sensations that are there. Feeling the weight of gravity. Perhaps they're warm or cold. The texture might be smooth or rough or hard. Your feet can be your anchor just as easily as your breath, and you can play with that. So breathing in and breathing out, always returning to our anchor when you notice you've become distracted. Taking one final breath in and out as we finish this short practice. Before you open your eyes, notice how you're feeling. Notice if there's any difference between when you started and between now. There is no right or wrong way to experience this. It's however you experience it. We just notice and get curious. So when you're ready, you can open your eyes. You might even find that you need to stretch a little bit or twist in your chair. Some people find this goes very quickly. Some find it goes very slowly. However you find it is fine. And let's continue on now that we've grounded. Let's take a look at what mindfulness is. It seems easy, but it's a lifetime practice. So it's the practice of paying attention on purpose, which is what we just did. We paid attention to our breath on purpose, to this present moment, which is what our breath does. We pay attention to that. And we do it with curiosity, kindness, and patience. So rather than judging ourselves, whether we did it good or bad, instead of judging, we throw that out and replace it with curiosity. Oh, I wonder why my shoulders are tense. I wonder why I couldn't stop thinking. And just notice. So we do this with kindness and patience. And I often use a puppy as an example. When we raise a puppy, they're cute and playful, but if we don't train them, they can get into a lot of trouble. And that's the same with our mind. If we don't train our mind, we can get into a lot of trouble, or that mind can get in a lot of trouble. So in a way, it's like training our mind or brain training. We do it on purpose in the present moment. And the reason why we focus on the present moment is that stress lives in the past and in the future. So if you think about times when you're stressed, it's often because something has happened that's upsetting or scary, or something is going to happen. When we bring ourselves in that moment, that is our chance for calm and peace and clarity. So mindfulness allows us to become aware of already what is happening. And I like to use the glasses there, because if you ever had to wear glasses, if you don't have your glasses on, things are very murky and cloudy and you just can't quite see what's happening. That's what mindfulness is like. The more you practice it, the more clearly you can see your life, your behavior, your thoughts, your emotions. It fine-tunes it over time, and it allows you to become more responsive rather than reactionary. So that, in a nutshell, is what mindfulness is. Paying attention to the present moment, which is exactly what we did with our grounding exercise we just did. So if you're watching this, you probably are somewhat interested, but why would somebody bother with this? Because it is like anything, you have to make time for it. You have to make a habit out of it. There's lots and lots of research behind this, and I'm just naming a few, but you should know that this is a science. It's been studied for over 30 years. Brain scans and all kinds of different studies have occurred. So you can have any religion that you might like. It does not interfere with this. That's your religion. This is your science. This is your brain training, giving you skills to meet what's going on in your life. So if you bring awareness, if you shine a spotlight of awareness, you are better able to see what's happening instead of sticking our head in the sand. You will weather hard times better. You learn how to handle your emotional roller coasters as we go throughout our day. We learn what our triggers are. We learn how to respond to those triggers. We begin to notice our unexamined assumptions. We have so many assumptions that maybe we do it because our parents did it or our grandparents did it, or it's just the way we've always done it. It can get in the way of our happiness. So the more we can peel away these layers and actually fine tune what is really going on, the happier we're going to be. We also find a way to really discover our inner core so that we become a stable tree with roots that go down deep. You can be in the best touch, be in touch with the best parts of yourself as well. Because with mindfulness, we promote noticing whatever is happening and accepting it. But we'll often find that inner critic is really doing a lot of harm with us, and we're hardwired to notice the bad rather than good. So the more we train ourselves to notice what's good, what's right, what's okay with us and around us, the happier we become. And change. We learn that change is inevitable. There's nothing we can do about it. And again, it's kind of the riding those waves as we learn to meet whatever is coming our way. So, that being said, I would like for you to once again give this a try, another experiential practice. This is one of the classics that we do. Typically, when we teach a class, we go at least 20 minutes, and we're gonna cut it down to 5. But the purpose of this is for us to notice what is going on in our body, because our body is like our first alert system. It will tell us if we only listen to it. It will tell us if we're hungry, tell us if we have a headache, if we're stressed. Our body might get all tight and tense. If we're scared, if we're angry, all of these things we'll learn to understand our bodies better. So again, we can learn to meet our needs as we go through it. So a body scan is traditionally done lying down. So if you have something available to you right now, go ahead and lie down on the floor and get comfortable. Put your hands and arms by your side and just allow your legs to be straight on your back and opened a little. And if you're not doing that, you can sit in a chair just as easily as you have been. So let's go ahead now and close our eyes if that's comfortable for you. If you find being in your body is part of your trauma, then I would suggest just kind of keeping your eyes open and dipping in as you'd like and out as you'd like. Always be safe. Always make sure that you're comfortable. But we will only be doing feet and head, so we won't be going into a lot of this. I'll give you a little snippet. So eyes are closed if you're comfortable. We're sitting up straight or lying on the floor. We're taking a breath in once again. And as I guide you through this practice, your eyes, you don't need to be doing anything. You're just going within. This is you time. No worries here. So we're breathing in and we're breathing out, just allowing our breath to be as it is. Allowing our body to sink into the chair or the floor. Allowing it to get heavy. Taking a few more breaths in as we ground and notice our anchor breath. Or if you prefer, your feet as your anchor, noticing the sensations in your feet. Or if you'd like to play with keeping your eyes open, you can simply just focus on something in the room. So we breathe in and breathe out. Let's go ahead and bring our attention all the way into our feet. Still breathing in and out, but focusing on our feet. Let's start with the left foot. Noticing the temperature, warm or cool. Noticing any other sensations, maybe tingling or pulsing, or maybe nothing at all. Be curious. Notice what's happening. Even feeling the weights of your feet. You might notice pain or absence of pain, tightness or tension. Now bring your attention into your right foot. Again, noticing temperature, sensations, tickly, pulsing, tingly, loose and soft, heavy. Just noticing those sensations and being curious. Now you can compare the two. Do they both feel the same or do they feel different? Just notice what's similar or different. Continuing to breathe. As you bring your attention into your belly, to your stomach area. In fact, you can put your hand there if you'd like. You can feel your breath as it comes in and out. You can feel if it's full or empty, tight or loose, hot or cold. Our stomach is like our second brain. It will give us lots of information. Maybe you notice the rise and fall. And if you'd like, you can even give it a little circular rub. That feels good. Just noticing what sensations are present there. Giving yourself some tender attention. Now we'll move up into our face, our jaw. Notice tightness or tension or looseness. Teeth. Eyes. Forehead. Just being curious what you find with your head and jaw. So much of us carry our tension in our jaw and our shoulders. And take a minute to pause and notice what you found out in this brief exploration. What did you notice about your body? Anything different? Notice if this was comfortable for you to do or challenging. And notice too that these body scans can be done with eyes open for 1 minute, quick check-in, driving the car, washing the dishes. Anytime you could take just a little minute or snippet of time to check in with yourself. Even setting your watch 5 times a day to go stop, check in for a minute. All right, take a moment once again to take a breath in and out. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. Again, take care of yourself if you need to have a stretch or a twist in your chair. Or get back in your chair if you're on the floor. And again, take a moment to reflect and notice what kind of information did you just gather about yourself? And how would it be different if throughout the day you took a moment to notice what your body was telling you? To notice if your jaw is always clenched or your shoulders are always up and tight, or your stomach. We all carry stress in particular parts of our body. And we show our emotions in different parts of our body as well. You might notice that if your heart's beating really fast, it could be because you've exercised or you're angry or irritated. So our body can give us all kinds of information about our mind, our emotions, or even something maybe we've hurt in ourselves. We can discuss this later if you would like. Let's move on. So mindfulness then is the idea that we bring to our awareness what is already there. We practice anchoring our attention on our breath or feet or whatever is a good anchor for you. And we continue bringing our attention back to our breath whenever we notice our mind has wandered off, as it does, or we've gone down the rabbit hole of worry or obsession. We notice, we let it go. So it's that practice of noticing, bringing awareness, bringing acceptance to whatever is there. And we've all been so conditioned to push away anything unpleasant and bury it down and not pay attention to it, that it causes us a lot of health problems, emotional problems, and it causes us to get kind of crazy in our minds too. So mindfulness brings awareness. It's the skill of training our attention. Mindful self-compassion brings that awareness, because if we don't know what we're doing, if we don't know that our body hurts or we're stressed or we're angry or we're sad, if we just don't realize it, there's nothing we can do about it. It's like having our head stuck in the sand. So we bring the awareness in, and then we bring in the self-compassion. And that's what the rest of this will be about. So self-compassion involves being aware, mindfulness. It involves learning how to treat ourselves kindly, especially when things don't go well for us or don't go the way we want them to do, or we have upsets. Especially when we have strong emotions that are overwhelming for us, we tend to beat ourselves up, or we don't perform the way we want to, or we're stuck in COVID lockdown for a long time. We need to learn to be kind to ourselves, because we are programmed to only look for the bad in our lives. And that's what's kept us alive and survived all of this time. But we know through research that self-kindness is one of the number one things we can do to be caring for ourselves, to be happier, and to be more well-balanced. So that's an entire practice in self-compassion. And then the common humanity, or the connectedness. This idea that we are never alone. Even though we might spend a lot of time alone, we are not alone. We are energetically connected with all humans on this earth. We have much more in common than we have differences. We all need to be loved and to be safe and to have kindness in our lives, to have enjoyment and fun. So we all need this connection, and it's always there with us. So to keep in mind that we are never alone, that at any given moment, whatever our experience is, thousands and millions of other people are also experiencing it at the same time. There is nothing wrong with us. We can treat ourselves kindly, and we can find ways to take care of ourselves. So self-compassion is the action part. We know we might need some help. What do we need? What kinds of things do we need? And so this, again, is an 8-week course that we're covering in a very short amount of time. So some research that we have discovered through the Marissa Knox, in the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion. If you're interested in this, I'll tell you later about more how you can get involved. But if you go to the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion, they have lots and lots of information and classes and resources for you there. So through the research, we know that mindful self-compassion can help us through uncertain times, through loss, and through hardship. And I will attest that it has certainly seen me through a lot of really, really difficult times. And it helps me learn how to comfort myself. It helps me notice when I'm having a rough time. And it helps me do what I need to do for myself. It helps us with coping with healthy preventative behaviors rather than unhealthy behaviors. We know some of the jokes. You go into Costco and you see huge carts of alcohol during COVID. Well, even though that's tempting and fun, it probably is not a healthy way to help us get through all of this. And it helps us with our well-being. It soothes us and promotes our healing and this connection, this idea that we are interconnected. It helps lower our levels of depression and stress, emotional avoidance, and intrusive thoughts, and reduces stress. There's been research done for ADHD in this role, of which I'm working on a class this coming year for parents and kids on how to use mindful self-compassion with ADHD. So there's just so many ways that this is going to expand. Kristen Neff is one of the major researchers on this, another person you could look into if you're interested. She just came out with a wonderful book called Fierce Self-Compassion, and it's a beauty. I absolutely love it. So it's a companion to the traditional mindful self-compassion. So I'm going to show you, I'm not going to read it, but I'm just showing you some research that was done by Stephen Porges, which has really been taking a forefront during this time period, called the Polyvagal Theory. And you don't need to look at any of the big words on the left. Let's simply identify it as the green zone, the red zone, and the blue zone. the green zone. And when we talk about this, we're talking about our nervous system and our brain and how it all interacts. So at the top of this is the safety green zone. This is the place we feel connected and safe and engaged. It is the most evolved part of our brain where this operates out of, which is called the prefrontal cortex here in your forehead. It brings feelings of warmth in our face and our heart. We feel good when we're in this place. So that's the safety place. This is where we all like to be, but we can't be there all the time. It's sometimes we're there. The next zone, a step down, is the fight flight, the red zone. And this is how we were programmed as humans. Whenever our body senses there is something not right, that we're being threatened, whether it be through emotions or thinking or actual physical harm, it's the fight flight piece of our brain. And we don't have control over this necessarily. Our body activates it, bang, there we go. So this is when we're not feeling safe. And what happens, we know through mindfulness research, is when we flip into this stage, we shut down our higher levels of thinking skills. We shut down the evolved part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex. We are simply operating now in a fight flight, which means we're literally going to fight with our fists or with our words, or we're going to run away, or in our mind, we're going to hide. All of us have experienced this at many times, I'm sure, throughout our lives. And we are in so much stress and trauma through COVID that probably, I know before COVID, adults spent about 50% of our time in this fight flight area. And I would guess that we're way up there at this point. It doesn't take much to tip us off. And we see that in our public arena as well. So it's like a cry for help. We often will feel this in our mid-chest and stomach, and all of this is very somatically or physically oriented. Again, paying attention to what's going on in our body will help us learn what to do. And then our blue zone is the freeze, shut down. Our other systems have failed us. Now we're just done. We're overwhelmed. It is the oldest part of our brain in the amygdala. And often we feel heavy and blue and depressed and lifeless. So our three stages, again, are the green, the red, and the blue. We know we like the green zone, but we can't be there all the time. The other two zones, we all experience this from time to time. And mindfulness and mindful self-compassion teach us what to do when we get in that zone, which we will practice later. Another chart, which it looks complicated too, which I like quite a bit, especially right now, is again, the green, the red, and the blue. It's just tipped the other way. So if we start at the bottom this time with the social engagement, that's our green zone. And this is the area where we might feel joy. We are in that present moment or in the zone. We feel grounded. We feel connected and curious. We feel literally open and relaxed. We feel more compassionate here and definitely mindful. So as we become activated, we move up that ladder into the fight flight. So the flight piece, things we might experience would be panic, fear, anxiety, worry, concern. And in the fight arena, rage, anger, irritation, and frustration. And then you move into the blue zone. This is the collapse, the freeze, numb, depressed, you feel helpless, overwhelmed. A lot of shame occurs here where I think we probably all know what shame is. You feel shut down and hopeless, just trapped, like you have no choices whatsoever. And so as we go up this ladder of escalation, it becomes more and more difficult for us to regulate, which is why we train in the body. We start noticing what our body does when we get into fight flight. Maybe it's a heart rate. Maybe it's feeling hot. Maybe it's acting out. Maybe it's hiding. We all have different ways. And as we move up that ladder, we also will understand in our body what our body feels like. These are just, even though I don't want to minimize the feelings, these are feelings, and feelings are okay if we can learn to work with them and learn the signals in our body for what's happening. So let's do another practice on this. This is going to be a little bit longer. This is going to help you experience what it feels like in your body when you're happy and relaxed versus not so much. So I will guide you as we go through this. I've said a lot, so I almost feel like I need to pause for a minute and just do a brief review before we move on. So we've talked about mindfulness and how that helps us be aware of the present moment, to accept it, to be there it is. We might not like it very much, but it's there. So we acknowledge that it's there. We accept it, and we find ways to deal with it. And then we talked about mindful self-compassion, which brings the action part in. Like, we can learn to treat ourselves more kindly. We understand we're just part of this human community where we all feel like this from time to time. And we learn what we can do in order to help us. We understand that we all have feelings, that we all have troubles, that nobody's perfect, that no life is perfect, even if it looks like it. And then we talked about the different stages of really the ladder of escalation, and how mindfulness can help us regulate that, helps us bring us back in the zone a little bit faster. Not quite such huge roller coasters, but maybe just little hills as we learn. So why don't you go ahead now, get in your position, whether it's sitting up or lying on the floor. Either way works just fine. And this might be close to 10 minutes actually, so make yourself comfortable. Get a drink if you need. I need to have one. So if you're on the floor, lying on your back, letting your head rest, even a blanket if you need a blanket, hands by your side. If you're in your chair, sitting upright, hands resting, feet on the floor, eyes open or closed, depending what works for you. Let's take a few breaths in and out. We've had a little bit of practice with this, so we're just breathing. Just giving ourselves a chance to regulate and balance. Maybe we're becoming a little bit familiar with how this feels in our body, how it feels in our mind. We know that if our mind gets carried away someplace, as it does, we just gently and kindly bring our attention back to my words and to your anchor. So let's begin by picturing a time you felt relaxed and happy or even joyful. Maybe you were laughing, carefree. Maybe you're with people or alone. Maybe you're in your happy place or just a random place. You can sift through the first thing that pops into your mind. Just a little happy is a good one too. Then you can picture who was there, if anybody, with you. Maybe it was your pet. Maybe you're in nature at the beach or in your favorite spot in your home. And without getting into a story about it, just do a snapshot in your mind of this time. Bring it in living color. Just picturing and seeing who's there, where it was. Continuing with our breath as we sift and we imagine. Now let's bring ourselves into our body. And what does your body feel like, or what did it feel like as you think about this? What were the sensations? Were you soft and open? Relaxed? And where in your body did you experience this? Head, heart, stomach, And does it bring a smile to your face as you think about it? And then notice, what were your thoughts? No judging here. Just notice what you were thinking. Ah, I really love that guy. Oh, that was so beautiful. Ah, I wish I was there. Whatever they were, just notice. And then notice what you were feeling, what your emotions were. Happy, joyful, calm, peaceful. Just name these things. We call that name it to tame it in mindfulness. Naming what's already there: body, mind, and feelings. And again, imagine and notice what it feels like in your body as you think of these happy times. Because we'll let go of that soon. And we'll move into a time where it wasn't so happy. Maybe you were a bit stressed or irritated or frustrated. Maybe you were frustrated with the traffic or a sales clerk. Maybe you had to wait for something, or someone said or did something that was frustrating. Don't pick the biggest, worst thing in your mind or your experience. Just pick a little one for this exercise. Once you've picked it, again, notice where you were. Notice who you were with, if anybody. Do a snapshot. Don't get carried away with the story, just the image. Now let's shift into your body. Now, what does your body feel like? What are your physical sensations? Has your heart started beating more? Have your hands, your face, or shoulders, or someplace else tensed up? Has your breathing become more shallow? Just notice whatever your experience is. Where is it? You might even notice if this is a common experience for you, if this is where you normally feel stress. And then what were your thoughts? And again, don't censor, no right or wrong here, just notice. I'm sure we can come up with lots of prime examples of, well, what an idiot. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that. We just let it roll in our thoughts. So whatever they were, just notice, bring it, give it some light. Now bring into your feelings and your emotions. Now how are you feeling? Frustrated, irritated, angry? Just noticing, once again, it's not good or bad or right or wrong. It's just what they are. It's all okay. We're simply noticing. We all are human. We all have these feelings, these thoughts. Let's find a way to work with something that's unpleasant. It's called a self-compassion break, and your eyes are still closed. It's just 3 steps. We still have this image in our mind of what we were unhappy about or unpleasant. And now you're just going to begin by naming it. Naming the emotion. You can say, anger is here. Frustration is here. Irritation is here. Just name it, no story. Just name what's there. And then you can go to the second step, which is common humanity, and tell yourself, oh, well, I'm not alone. Everybody has felt this emotion at one time or another. It's okay. Give yourself a break. Just an emotion. It will pass. And the third step is, what do you need? And at this point, I'll invite you to put a hand or 2 hands on your heart, bringing yourself a soothing touch, maybe even a little bit of a rub or a circle. Or you could try holding your face with a soothing touch. There's many different ways to do this. So maybe this is enough to just name it, to remind yourself you're never alone, and to give yourself a soothing touch. Or maybe you need something else now or later. Maybe you need to talk to your therapist, or you need to eat, or you need to sleep, or you need some exercise or some fresh air. Make a plan so you can do that later. So, self compassion break is naming what's present, remembering you're not alone. We all experience this. And third, what do you need? Self compassion break. Many of these, I should tell you, are on my website, Teens Just Breathe, if you wanted to look into this a little bit more. Let's continue on. So that is a classic that people can do anywhere you are. And to give you a little bit of an example, when this first light bulbs went off for me, because part of the problem is being able to notice while you're in it. And so the learning curve is rather long. So I had learned this, I had actually trained to teach it, and it took quite a while until one day I was really angry and I had gotten on the treadmill, which is a good place to go to get it out. And I was just sputtering and carrying on and really getting angrier. And finally I went, oh my gosh, I could do the self-compassion break. So I stopped that and I just named what was happening. I'm angry. I'm really, really angry right now. But I'm not the only one. Everybody gets angry. And what do I need? And I needed to really exercise more because I was really angry before I could cool down. So that's an example of how self-compassion break works. But you might not notice it, that you're really angry or have a strong emotion until the next day or 2 days later. Whenever you notice it, go ahead and do it. And again, it's a very short practice for you to do. All right, just one slide on trauma. There's so much research and so much going on with trauma right now that I've studied and more to come. But I will say that if you're interested in this, David Treleaven has done extensive research and presentations and written all kinds of things about mindfulness in trauma. It's well worth a look. He does a free monthly online virtual program that you can also attend. It's a little bit more geared for mindfulness practitioners and therapists, but whenever I go, I learn a lot. So what we know now with COVID is that sustained trauma over a long period of time is harder to integrate than a short-term incident. So rather than just, let's say you've had a bad accident or one really bad thing happened to you, we can recover from that much easier than something that goes on and on and on and on. And so this is the COVID, but it also involves everybody from their childhood on who has been involved in traumatic situations. So that is well worth, if you are a person, which many of us are, looking into this and being kind to yourself about how this is affecting you is really important. And mindful self-compassion, besides therapy, is one of the best things you could do. So how this works is we notice, oh, this is really difficult. That's the mindfulness piece. We're noticing it. We're bringing it out of subconscious into conscious. And then we show up for ourselves. We're our own best friend, our own champion. Maybe we didn't have that when we were growing up, but we can be that for ourselves now. It's very powerful because we can give it to ourselves whenever we need it. And then this common humanity, developing a community, remembering that you are not alone. You always are connected with others and you can always reach out. So given our time frame, I'm going to be moving through these two ideas rather quickly, but I imagine you're all going, so what am I going to do when I get in the red zone? Mindfulness, certainly, and mindful self-compassion spends a lot of time addressing what you can do in traditional practices. But because this is a short presentation, I'm going to give you some quick things that you can do. And a lot of quick things. So you can see if any of this is useful or helpful to you. But this is the idea that we've gotten out of this green zone, that we've been triggered somehow into this fight flight. We can notice in our bodies when we start tensing up and getting tighter, our heart will start beating faster, our face might get hot. We're ready to run or we're ready to fight. That's what our body is trying to do for us. Somehow we're not feeling safe. We may not realize it, but our body will kick in, even if we don't want it to. So here are some research ways that we can help ourselves, especially if we catch it at the beginning. So think about this first one, was shaking. Think of a dog. If you've ever had a dog, it gets up, it does the doggy yoga stretch, and then it shakes itself out from head to tail. It's resetting itself, getting ready to go. We can reset ourselves by simply shaking arms, both of our arms, shaking our legs, shaking our whole body. It's a really fun, actually, and nice way to reset. So shaking is a very powerful way and a quicker way to help us reset out of the fight flight. Soothing touch, I gave you a brief example of that. You can rub your arms, if that feels good, rub your heart, rub your belly, just holding onto your face. Just acknowledging your discomfort and the unpleasantness is really, if you think about a child when they are hurt and they go running to their parents, they're getting comforted. It's the same thing, just noticing that you're hurting sometimes is all that's needed. You can do practices where you breathe in and out, counting backwards, like 10, 9, 8. You can do longer exhales rather than inhales. So a 7-11 breath is something we often teach the kids. So we can try a few breaths. You can breathe in to the count of 7, breathing in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Breathing out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and continue on. You can count to yourself as you do it, which is another way to anchor yourself, move yourself out of this reactive pattern. Longer exhales calm us, longer inhales activate us. And all of the grounding practices we tried at the beginning, even rocking, humming, noticing sensations, all of those are really helpful and fairly quick ways, unless we're really entrenched and it's a pattern that's been happening for a long time, which is often very true of anxiety. Anxiety takes a lot longer to work ourselves through that, but mindfulness will really help balance that out and help relieve that. We actually learn to accept it and allow it to be there, which sounds strange, but that's what happens. So that's regulating out of the fight flight. And it does take a practice. It does take a while. It does take like a daily thing where you set your watch and you tell yourself, I'm going to do this for a minute. I'm going to do this for a couple minutes. And then our other part, this shutdown piece, this is this, just total overwhelmed, heavy, depressed, can't move. And when we're in this stage, breathing at first or the other things I showed you are probably not going to be effective. The best thing you need to do is to move, which is sometimes the last thing we want to do. But that's why doctors always say, get an exercise program going, even if you don't feel like it, do it. So find what you can do to move. Maybe it's dancing, maybe it's shaking, maybe it's running, maybe it's walking. Tapping is a whole other study where you tap your arms. If you do Qigong, you'll learn this practice with Qigong. Orienting is another practice that you can do. And it's basically looking around the room, noticing the colors, noticing what's there as if you've never seen it before. You just slowly take in the room, and in a way, you're checking out the safety of the room. Long exhales, rocking and humming, mothers always know about that. And music is one of the best ways for many of us to soothe ourselves, to bring ourselves out of the state that we're in. The important thing to do is to take care of yourself when you're here. Maybe it's a therapist if you don't have one. Maybe it's talking with your doctor. Maybe it's talking with a friend. So what we want to do when we're in this mode is we just want to curl up like this in this protective mode and do nothing. And that's probably the worst thing you can do. It's very counterintuitive to reach out because we want to close down. Reach out, get help, get some movement in there if you're in this category. So we're coming to an end of a really packed informational program here. I hope you all hung in with me. I have just this last slide plus a little info on where to go from here. So in a nutshell, if you're interested in this and training your mind, you can take small snippets of time, like I mentioned, maybe just a minute, set your watch 5, 6, 7 times a day, and stop and breathe for 1 minute. If breathing doesn't work for you, you can move, do yoga, do some stretching or shaking or humming, but do it on a regular basis. Another powerful way to counteract the especially depression and anxiety is to practice gratitude. It's well researched. Our negativity bias as humans makes us want to focus what's bad and wrong and not okay. And then what happens, our mind gets out of control, and that's all we can think about. And I know we can all relate to that. So to counteract or balance that, we have a gratitude practice. And during COVID, I had a few gratitude buddies. We would, each day we would text something we were grateful for. And it was really one of the high points of my day is to remember, oh yes, there are so many good things left. Helps you get out of this dump that you're in into something a little more productive. If you're a worker and just simply in living with other people in some way, a buddy system, again, works really well. And this is a debriefing at the end of the day. You can do it with your kids. You can do it with your partner, with your friends. But it's not meant to be longer than a couple minutes. It's not a big, long saga story. It's just brief. So number one, what disturbed you today? What bothered you today? And you simply name it. You might say, angry at clerk. What sensations were present during that time? Tight, teeth clenching, face red. And then what do you need? Now that you've made it through the day, what needs to happen if it didn't happen already? Is it simply a hug, a soothing touch? Is it food? Is it a break? What is it that you need? So if you can remember these 3 steps, name it to tame it, feel it to heal it. That's the sensations part. And then what do we need? 3 steps for taking care of ourselves. That's probably one of the easiest things you can do. Okay, coming to an end here. The Grand Rapids Center for Mindfulness, of which I am affiliated with, offers a wide array of classes. Some are 8 weeks, some are 5 weeks, some are 3 weeks, there's a couple of one-day workshops or weekend workshops. But the traditional mindfulness-based stress reduction is 8 weeks. Right now, everything is online and virtual. You could actually do an independent study if that works better for you, although I do encourage you to try to be with other people for this. There's a lot of interaction that happens that's very helpful. You would get a workbook with this, access to online resources and meditations, and of course the teacher. You can buy independent too. So there's mindful self-compassion, there's mindful eating, which is really helpful for all of us who might have eating disorders or a relationship with our body or food that's not healthy. All-day retreats. And then this new class, Introduction to Mindfulness for Therapists, taught by April Hadley. It's one of the co-founders of this center. You can go to the Grand Rapids Center for Mindfulness to find out about this. And then mine classes, I deal primarily with youth and family, although I also do a lot of adult programs. I've got a new class I'm developing on ADHD, probably to start out with for parents, and then for high school students. Upper elementary, which I've not been doing much of because it's virtual, and then mindfulness and mindful self-compassion for middle and high school is available. Right now it's virtual. I'm trying to decide what's going to happen after that. And then in October, I teach a 3-week mindful parenting class with the Grand Rapids Center for Mindfulness. So you can reach me through the Grand Rapids Center for Mindfulness or my teensjustbreathe.com page. And that is the end of my presentation. I think maybe we can stop that. And if there's any questions, I'm not sure if maybe I can stop it and come back for any questions that might be available.
I didn't see any questions come through.
Okay, all right. Well, beautiful then. And I think
Yes.
we are done.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us and presenting on this tonight. A lot of great content and good tools too to practice and work on building and cultivating that self-compassion. And that fierce self-compassion book, we do own it. So I just put it on hold.
Excellent. It is amazing. It really is focusing on balancing the male, female, yin yang, and bringing that out in all of us. And I just think it's one of the best books I've read in quite a while, although I do love this stuff. I think it's very helpful for people.
For sure. Well, thanks to you all watching this. Thanks for joining us tonight, and I hope you all have a great evening.
Thank you. Bye.